TP says it's all a red herring for the central banks to be bailed out once more. The globalists are getting ready for the ultimate casus belli for stealing everybody's bank deposits. Next up, control grid slave tokens. Well, I hope that's not right, TP. I hope that's not right, but we will see. William Harris says Trump is just a tool to get white men to buy back into a system that hates them. Now, instead of burning the system, they're ready to die for it. Well, I mean, some bozo did write an essay talking about that once upon a time. Don't know what happened to that bozo. Some people say he fell off. Some people say he's lost it. Some people say he's become like a CNN journalist, they say. I tell you, it's like I'm living in the Truman Show. It really is. Every day I think, what happened? Like, is there like some like sliding doors reality that I walked off? You know, everybody's just mental. They really are. More super chats. O2 Tom says 90D passes, tariff raise resumes, inflation rises, Fed increased rates, $10 trillion of debt refinance at a higher rate over the next 12 months, military cut, end of empire. Well, we'll see about that. I mean, I strongly suspect that when this 90-day period is over, this tariff regime will not be. It may come back in a kind of cucked and weakened state, but I do not believe that we're going to see anything near as grandiose as what that guy was saying. That Spencer Robinson guy was saying about Liberation Day. I just don't think it's going to happen. Studio Arena says, what happens when two managerial states decide to fight? It's like how the Arabs took over when Rome and Persia collapsed at the same time. Yes, I mean, who knows? Because one of the issues is that we've never seen two powers at this scale go at it before. It's the scale of China, the scale of America that is scary here. Much bigger in many ways in scale, in terms of firepower and nuclear weapons and even manpower, than British Empire versus the German Reich, of course. Poods, Vision of Confrontation says the fourth dimension is the cope dimension. Oh, maybe I should need to spend some time in the fourth dimension, because maybe people are happier coping, but I can't ever be happy lying, personally. Maybe I've got like some psychotic defect that means that I do not respond to social pressure, to friends, I just like, it's like truth Tourette's. I must tell the truth regardless of what anyone says. But maybe there are many of us like that. Maybe Ed Dutton's got a bit of that truth Tourette's, doesn't he? Came out over the fallout over his Jonathan Bowden book, where he just couldn't understand why people, didn't want their kind of headcanon version of Bowden as this kind of mythical hero in their minds, shattered by the actual truth of his life. And he couldn't get his head around that. And in the same, I mean, I understand intellectually, of course, why people need their delusions, why people need their copes and so on. I just don't care. I just don't care about all of that. I mean, probably some of the Americans are saying, like, look, we understand what he's saying. We understand it's bad, but we need to lie for the good of morale. For example, we need to lie for the good of morale. Yeah, that's not my role. I'm a truth teller. I'm going to tell you lies for the good of your morale. Whatever one of those is, Pood says, should we not in the US even care so much about this issue? Surely it is only a major blow to the gay. Should we not in the US even care so much about this issue? Surely it is only a major blow to the gay and the MAGA movement. I do think we should care about it. It's of global significance. It's not only of significance to Americans. What happens in America affects what happens here massively. What was the old saying? When America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold, right? If MAGA goes completely tits up, you can kiss goodbye to getting these Keir Starmers and so on out ever. because that's not going to happen. It matters if the entire quote unquote movement, I've never really believed in movement, but it matters if everybody is discredited by this. It really does. It also matters in other ways. Like, for example, I mean, I haven't really checked to see what happened to them, but I've got a pension, I've got investments and savings and so on. I mean, I remember reading years ago in a book saying, like, just don't look at it, you'll drive yourself mad if you track it. So I haven't even looked. I don't know, maybe Trump cost me 6K, maybe cost me 20 grand. I have no idea. I haven't even looked because for my own mental health, I don't even look at that sort of stuff. It could be up, it could be down. I don't know. There'll come a day where I check, but until that day comes, I don't want to know. So it will affect people on that level, right? Trump's actions actually affected the UK gilts market, right? The gilts market was up. It was affected by about 5%. Which is, again, remember what happened to Liz Truss? I mean, kind of a parallel thing was happening in the UK gilts market yesterday as well, until Trump intervened. So it does. What Trump does, unfortunately for us, does affect us. It does matter to us. Another thing that it's worth remembering, of course, is that if you are German or French or Italian or British or wherever you happen to come from, there is literally no reason for you to become a cheerleader for what Trump is doing for his American First platform. The first question should always be, is it good for us? Right? This is like 101 stuff. Is it good for us? And again, there's a question mark over that when it comes to what has happened, because as far as I can see, he launched a plan that was never going to work and then cucked on it within a week. So I don't really see what the good is of that, really, for anybody. Azora says, as a protectionist attacked by MAGists because I said he will fail without an industrial policy and general tariffs don't work, this week was a vindication. Many such cases, Azora. It's not really about... I think basically everybody would support America reindustrializing, and indeed Europe and this country reindustrializing. We all support that. The question is focusing on trade deficit the mechanism by which to bring that about, or is industrial policy the way to bring it about? And long-term planning, maybe, not back of the fag packet calculations. You get the impression that everybody who's involved in this administration, much like Dear Leader, is flying by the seat of their pants. Okay, now it may be all right to fly by the seat of one's pants doing real estate deals, or it may be all right to fly at the seat of one's pants when you're fighting for your political survival, or where you're beefing with Jeb Bush, or where that stuff may play well in domestic politics. But, to use another wrestling term, this is where the big boys play. Do you remember that? This is where the big boys play. He's in the global arena now. He's in international relations. And he's up against forces that, he's up against the world class. President Xi, Putin, Erdogan. Like, these guys have been around. Some of these countries... the European Union, whatever you want to say about these players on the world stage, you have to come at them with a plan. You have to be serious. You have to know what you're doing. And otherwise, you're going to end up looking very foolish very quickly in front of the entire world. So, it was a big risk what Trump did, and unfortunately, it's not paid off for him on this occasion. Yes, no risk, no reward. I agree with that. But sometimes if you can go big and land flat on your face, and that's what's happened here in a spectacular way as well. Really spectacular way. Make It Doc says, Guy's fundamental economics don't change. An economy built on bullshit has no foundation. It doesn't matter how long it takes, the bullshit will go away. Yeah, that's true. Uhtred, son of Uhtred, says, "Good day, AA. Do you have any recommendations on books on Roy Jenkins? This goblin seems to be the instigator of every social malaise in the UK, from what brief research I've done into him. Unfortunately, no. I do not have any. I do not really read books on individual, like political figures like that, like political biographies. There's a whole genre of people who like read like the memoirs of politicians and things like that. I've never been interested in that, so I don't really know that much about Roy Jenkins. What I do know about him is that he was very instrumental in pausing this country, put it that way. A lot of the social liberalism in legislative terms that came in was as a result of the machinations of Roy Jenkins, unfortunately. And I say unfortunately because I believe he's one of the few prominent Welsh politicians. Rito Hayner says, remember the Signal chat story? That sure mattered. That was the moment, by the way, when I said that MAGA jumped the shark. The Signal chat story and the fucking copes around that I was reading was another major recent L, because it made the administration look like amateur hour. It looked stupid. Okay, and people coming out with justifications for all of that. There's nothing these people won't justify, and at the end of the day, it's a gaslight. I won't be bullshitted. You might get off on that, in which case you can bugger off to some other place and get off on it in your own time. I don't want to see it in my chat. I don't want to see your copes around me. You know, I'm keeping my spaces cope free, slop free. Anyway, he says, remember that Signal chat story? That sure mattered. Watch people somehow forget this one too. I see no reason not to go maximum tiger jockey. Yeah, the trouble is with this one, though, you can't basically almost crash the global economy, and especially the American economy. You cannot damage the entire world's confidence in the American ability to repay its debts, and then just say like, whoops, guys, sorry, on to the next one. I mean, if anybody can do it, Trump can do it, because he's a time lord, as I've talked about before. But I think this one is different. I really do. Maximal, it's easily the biggest L MAGA has ever taken, right? Because you could say, well, okay, but what about the debacle with J6, or what about 2020, or what about like all of these other times where on paper you'd say, well, MAGA took an L. The thing is, with those, there was a sense of injustice there. There was a sense that we were up against the evil regime. That, like, on this was purely down to Trump, purely down to him. And unfortunately, it hasn't worked, and it's been a shit show on top of it. It's embarrassing. It really is. And I'm sorry to say that as well, because I had hopes that Trump may actually do some good stuff in this term, right? But it seems to me that, I don't know. It's like, I mean, I hate to say it, it's almost just like there's a crazy old man who's a president, and he kind of like doesn't really know what he's doing. That's what it feels like a lot of the time at the moment. And even worse, he's surrounded by all these slimy operators like Lutnick and Hegseth and Vance, and I don't like any of these people. These people are slimy. I don't like them. They feel like the lowest sort of Machiavellians, and I don't trust those people. And I also notice that they're always looking in terms of, I mean, the media. This is one area where I disagree with the mainstream media a little bit. So if you listen to Rory Stewart and Alistair Campbell, they're saying like all of these people around Trump are just sycophants and yes men and so on and so forth. There's some truth to the fact that they're obsequious. That is true. what I don't like is the fact that there's an element of it that they're kind of conniving behind Trump as well, where like it's like they're kind of Trump says something and they're interpreters of it, and then they try to like use their interpretation of what Trump is saying to advance some policy or some agenda or some messaging that they've got.